Now welcome to another Let's Talk Some Star Wars. This time we'll be taking a look at and discussing the results of the poll that simply asked you, what did you think of Andor Season 2 overall? And of course I will also be reading and responding to some of the comments left on this poll. And so let's jump right in, let's get to the results, and we will see that 87% of people who voted said it was fantastic, 9% said it was pretty good, 2% then said it was okay or average or kind of mid, and then a final 1% said it was pretty bad. And yes, I will now give the disclaimer that I usually do when I do a poll video, that these are just the results from people who tend to watch my videos. I mean, if this poll is showing up in your feed, it's probably because you're clicking on my polls, you're watching my videos and that sort of thing. And of course, I loved this show, so if you watch my videos, you probably enjoy the show too. And as I always say, another channel who maybe didn't enjoy Andor might get some different results, but something tells me that a good chunk of the fan base, even though yes, there are those who say it isn't Star Wars or find it boring and slow and all that sort of thing, which is absolutely fine if you didn't like it, but I do get a sense that a good chunk of the fan base really did appreciate this show. That, as many of the comments said, it gave us something to really celebrate in the Star Wars franchise for the first time in quite some time. And yes, there's been other good things, don't get me wrong, but this was on another level. This was exceptional. This was so good that maybe you look back at some of the other shows in the Disney era or movies in the Disney era and you wonder, why couldn't those have been better? You proved you can do good Star Wars. You proved you can do exceptional Star Wars, and yet so often you give us half-assed Star Wars. And it's kind of funny how if they don't follow up on this and continue to do good Star Wars, which maybe they will, maybe they won't, but it's kind of funny that the best thing Star Wars could do a disservice to them, because now we do expect not everything to be like Andor, as I say all the time, and not everything needs to be exactly like this show. I've really enjoyed Skeleton Crew, I've enjoyed other things as well. It doesn't all have to be just like this. But you've proven you can actually make really, really good shows. You've proven you can go above and beyond and create something special. And as I've said before, that's just how I want you to treat Star Wars, like it is something special. You're not going to get it right every single time, but I do want to see the best effort possible. Maybe that makes me sound like an entitled fan, but I tend to think it makes me sound like a customer who pays good money to watch your content and is very eager to give you more money for good content. You keep making Star Wars like Andor, I will happily keep subscribing to Disney Plus or going to the movies. That is how this is supposed to work. That is how us fans want it to work. We just want your best effort. Not everything is going to be phenomenal. Not everything is going to be Andor, either in tone and style or just in quality. We get it. You'll screw up from time to time. But we want your best effort. And when we look back at things like Kenobi and some of the other shows, well, we really don't feel like we got it. And all we're really asking for is you to put the same kind of love into Star Wars that we already have for it. And maybe Tony Gilroy wasn't the biggest Star Wars fan ever, but clearly he put everything he had into the show to make it the best it could possibly be. He's even said it's the most important thing he's ever done, and I do tend to agree with him. This is something that sticks with you, which is something we'll talk about in the comments. And speaking of those, we should probably get to them, otherwise I'm going to keep rambling on. But before we do get to them, I just want to say thank you to everybody who votes or comments or watches these or any of my videos. And of course, a big thank you to those who also support the channels on Patreon. Anyway, let's now get to the top rated comment left on the poll, and it came to us from Clancy Hyde, who said, I'm only 19 and I got into Star Wars just before The Force Awakens came out, and I've stayed with the franchise through the highs and the lows for the last decade, but I can't tell you how incredible it was seeing this franchise finally age up with me in this show. Thank you, Mr. Gilroy, for this amazing piece of art. And this is a really interesting comment, because you jumping on board with the beginning of the Disney era, essentially, it does make one wonder how you stuck around for as long as you did, because let's be real, the Disney era hasn't exactly been the greatest era of Star Wars. Yes, there's been some good in it, don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of surprised that you did stick around this long, because I've always assumed, and I don't have any hard evidence to back it up, I'm just kind of going off a gut feeling, I guess. But I've always kind of assumed this generation, your generation, the 20 or younger generation who was probably 10 or maybe a little younger when The Force Awakens did come out and Star Wars relaunched at that time, I've always got this impression there aren't a lot of you around because there just isn't a lot of reason to stick around. Not to mention you come from a generation, and no offense to you, but you come from a generation that grew up differently. You have access to smartphones and all this sort of different forms of entertainment that even back in the prequel era, the prequel kids didn't necessarily have, and certainly us OT kids didn't have. And with all these distractions that you have that us older folks don't necessarily have or didn't have back in the day, it's kind of surprising to find out you picked Star Wars of all things. I'm not questioning your loyalty or dedication or your attention span or anything like that. I'm simply saying there are so many options out there, and Star Wars hasn't, again, been the greatest thing ever the last decade. So it's kind of cool, surprising, and makes me happy to see that, yes, there have been new fans to come on board during this dark times, if you will. I'm happy to have you here. I'm happy you found the franchise. I'm happy you stuck with it through the hard times, and that you are rewarded by getting something like Andor as you kind of move into adulthood, if you will. Alright, let's now move on to this comment from Puppetry, who said, "Not only is this show absolutely spectacular, I really believe it's built to last. While other pieces of media leave my mind soon after finishing, Andor has had an iron hold over my thoughts since the very first season. This is a show made with such depth and detail that every time I watch it, I spot something new or feel more strongly about things I missed. Season 1 aged so well, and I actually believe Season 2 will age even better, where some of the stronger choices, time jumps, sudden character endings, storytelling via negative space, will only become more resonant with time. I also wanted to say thank you to Thor, Naboo, and the community for the discussions, and somehow I think even years beyond now, we'll all still find things to talk about from this timeless show." And I totally agree with you that this show was built to last. There is something about this show when I fired up the final episode of Season 2 and I knew this was it. This was the last new episode of Andor I was ever going to watch unless something really strange happens. I felt this sadness like I was saying goodbye to a friend. I know this might sound dramatic or like I'm crazy, and I think part of it was knowing how Rogue One was going to end, that the character's story obviously was going to come to an end in Rogue One. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. And I really do feel like the show has left a lasting impact on me. I think the last time I felt like this about a piece of media was the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the movies from 25 years ago now. And how you just kind of had this sense of dread when they were ending, and how you were never going to see these characters again. You were never going to hang out with these characters again and go on another adventure with them. I think it's a really rare thing when a show sucks you in that well, when you really just don't want to see it end no matter what. It was just that well done. Moving on, we now have this comment from Red Stratus 97, who said, "It's such a shame that this will be the highest peak that Disney Star Wars will ever get. I don't have much hope for anything else after this." And though I totally get that sentiment, and I think you're justified in feeling that way, and there's a part of me that thinks, yeah, this might just be the greatest thing Star Wars I ever see again, I want to hold on to hope. I want to believe, and maybe I'm a fool for believing, but I want to believe they will look at the show, they will look at the response to it, they will look at how much people really loved it, that the people who actually watched it and didn't find it boring or not Star Wars or whatever, how much they're praising it, how much they enjoyed it, and they will say to themselves, we have to find a way to do something like this again. And I don't necessarily mean just to like Andor, but to find a way to create something that does have an impact, that leaves that impression. And it maybe won't be quite this good, don't get me wrong, but this is the key. You have to find people who have the talent and the ability to write this damn well, the actors who can play the parts this well, and everybody else that played a role in making this show. Again, everything is on point, from the cinematography to the score to the costumes to set designs. It is the perfect show, in my opinion. It is that damn good, and maybe we don't ever get anything quite this good ever again, but I gotta believe there's a chance we will get some good Star Wars again someday, somehow. Now we move on to this comment from Michelle Moy, who said, "I still say Cyril died a hero who saved the Alliance by stopping Cassian from killing Dedra before Alani could raid her files." And that is an interesting one that I hadn't thought of before, but there are so many little things in there where you realize that if one thing kind of goes a little differently, everything changes. I mean, if those corporal security guards in Season 1 don't give Cassian a hard time in the brothel of all places, Cassian's story obviously does not unfold the way it does. He doesn't eventually go all the way through to steal the plans to the Death Star, and then Luke blows it up, and so on. One of the things I really love about this show is you can see the dominoes. You can see how one piece hits another, and then another, and then another, and you can see the chain reactions. A lot of the time, shows just have things happen because, well, the plot needs to move along, so they make it happen. Here, it is so character-driven. You can just, again, you can see all the pieces hitting one after the other, leading to these chain reactions that lead to these major events that shape the entire galaxy. It's just amazing writing, amazing storytelling, and again, please, Disney, find a way to do more of this. Alright, and one final comment here, and it comes to us from Garrett The Viking, who said, Andor is simply some of the best Star Wars ever and one of my favorite shows ever made. It's incredible, and I don't know when or if we'll ever see another Star Wars show of this quality and care given to it again, but I am thankful we have this. And I couldn't agree more. As much as I'm talking about hopefully they can do something this good again, and hopefully they'll learn some lessons from this and Star Wars will get better, I'm just thankful we had this show. I'm thankful to just have enjoyed the hell out of something Star Wars again. I know there are people who don't like it, and that's fine, but it's just so nice to truly love something Star Wars again, to just have this unabashed love for it where, yes, it's not absolutely perfect or anything. We can nitpick, we can find flaws. There are people who say, season 2, maybe the pacing's a little off, or I wish it wasn't condensed. And yeah, I think there are things in season 2 and in season 1 that we could say, sure, that could have been better. But it's about as close to perfect as anything created by human beings is ever going to be, I think. It is that damn good. But I'm so thankful we have it. I'm so thankful it is part of Star Wars, that it has enhanced everything else Star Wars, in my opinion. That it makes Rogue One a much better movie, even though it was already a pretty good movie. And it makes the original trilogy feel different too. It just gives stakes to everything that is going on that maybe aren't necessarily felt or understood quite so well. I mean, we know the Empire is bad. We know they're doing horrible things in the galaxy. But now we've seen just how bad they are. We see just how much they impact the lives of everybody in the galaxy. And what they're willing to do to hold on to their power and to amass more power by building the Death Star. The Gorman Massacre is just brilliantly done. It's so personal. It's so different than, say, just blowing up Alderaan, which, yeah, makes an impression as well. It makes a point about how bad they are. But there was something about the Gorman Massacre, being on the ground, seeing how it all played out, and seeing how it was all set up, that makes it feel so much different than, again, just blowing up a planet. But anyway, yes, I'm thankful we have it. I'm thankful I got to share it with all of you who watched my videos and who comment in my videos. Again, thank you for everybody who makes this channel what it is and wants to talk some Star Wars and finally had some really good Star Wars to talk about. Well, that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below and tell me what you think of anything and everything I had to say here, all of my rambling. Tell me why you loved Andor, or maybe tell me why you didn't. Whatever the case may be, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.